My name is Gene, and I'm joined by Princess Nikki. And
Hi.
the and Princess, let's know a little bit about you and your experience with the Bucks and how you became a Bucks fan.
Well, I've been a Bucks. I'm kind of a bandwagoner. I jumped on when we won the Super Bowl, but let me explain. I was 12 years old. I didn't know anything about football. My dad raised me as a Broncos fan, and he didn't teach me anything about football. It's just go Broncos. End of story. That's all you need to know about football, right? And so when my father and I were watching the Bucks and the Raiders in the Super Bowl, I asked him who he thought was going to win, and he said the Raiders. So I said, okay, I'm going for the other team, and then I stuck with it ever since. So I've put in my time and dealt with this team as much as anybody else. I just kind of came on board a little later, but yeah, I've been a Bucks
Absolutely.
fan since then.
And one thing I will say, you've got a high football IQ. I enjoy talking with you. I know you don't like hearing that, but your thought process about football is really good. It's not let me follow the ball and whoever has it, that's who I'm worried about. But uh, just talking to you and seeing how you can actually look at the offensive line, for instance, and see players that aren't playing well, or just stuff like that. I really appreciate talking with you. We've talked a lot on Twitter, and it's been about a year that we've been trying to get the show together where we can kind of share our ideas. So I'm glad that it finally came about, and here we are.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I mean, this has always been your idea, and I'm always willing to help. And I appreciate the compliments about the football stuff because,
Yeah,
it's always hard being a girl in this world. But I love football more than life, and anything that I can learn about it, I'm all ears.
that's how I'm the same way. I'm still learning. There's a lot of stuff I'm still learning. I was talking with Styles G. White a couple of days ago, and just kind of picking his brain about things like how to break down film. I do have NFL Rewind, so I try to watch the game and try to break it down as much as I can. But it's good to actually talk to a former pro player and get their perspective on things as well.
Oh, definitely. I had an opportunity to meet Styles at the What the Buck tailgate was it week 16? I didn't get a chance to meet him though because he was, everybody was trying to get their time in with him, and I had other people that wanted to talk to me, so I
That's
didn't get a
always
chance to talk to him. But yeah, he seemed like a really cool guy. I mean, I still, talk to Steve White, who does awesome breakdowns.
oh
Uh,
yes.
Steve White is amazing for breakdowns of different players, and he's
And I think that's where I really got my passion for, breaking down film a lot more was, talking to Steve White and just listening to his perspective on things. So, that's kind of where I've gotten to where I am. And I try not to use emotion when I talk about something or if I tweet something or if I post something, unless I'm being goofy. I try not to, think, well, this is how I feel. Because I know Booger McFarland says it, Steve White says it, Warren Sapp says it, the tape don't lie. So, if I have something that I'm saying, I definitely want to have the facts to back it up, or normally I just don't speak on it.
right,
But
definitely, and that's something that you'll find about me. If I don't know something, I'll say, here's the disclaimer. I've only seen this, this, or that, and I'm not gonna claim to know something that I don't. If I don't know something, I'll just tell you, and we can either research it ourselves or get somebody else's input. But definitely, I'm not going to be using my opinion as fact, and I take everybody's opinions, and I want to hear everything.
yeah,
So definitely, and Booger McFarland has been awesome with me. He's taught me a lot of things, and he's always taking my questions and answering them, and he's a good
yeah, he's
guy
he's
too.
he's a good person. He's a peanut butter and jelly guy like myself, so you can't go wrong with a guy like that.
Right. Definitely.
But what we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to touch on a lot of different things. There's a lot going on with the Bucks right now. We're getting ready for the draft. I know the big thing that's going on in social media for the Bucks Nation is Jameis Winston has announced that he is going to come out for the NFL draft, which has changed a lot of speculation for a lot of people. And we have a lot of people that are excited and a lot of people that are not that excited. I think it's Mariota. You have people that think maybe we should just do draft picks and trade down and get more draft picks. So I definitely want to touch on everything because I've I've listened to a lot of the fans, and I get what they're saying. Everybody's got their own way of looking at things, and the draft, you never know what you're going to get. To be honest, I mean, there are players that you think, oh, they're good, but being that they've never taken a snap in the NFL, you just don't know until they set foot on the field.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, Ryan Leaf and Tim Couch and Jamarcus Russell were can't-miss quarterbacks, so you just never know how it's going to play out.
Yeah, and I remember the argument was Ryan Leaf the number one pick? Should he have been picked first? And did the team that picked him, did they make a mistake? Or it was crazy at that time. So kind of looking back on his hindsight's 2020, and you see where Ryan Leaf is now in his life, and I'm glad that he's kind of corrected himself and he's trying to work on bettering himself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you always wish the best for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when it comes to quarterback evaluations or, drafting players, it's always going to be a gamble. There is no, the Andrew Lucks in the world are few and far between. So
yes.
I'm kind of having that issue with these quarterbacks.
And that's the big thing. I mean, Andrew Luck set the bar so high, and then you look at what Washington gave up to get RG3, and you see how that situation has totally turned abysmal, basically. And I feel bad for him as a player because hey, he's like falling apart. When the Bucs played against him, they had this kid rattled, and he's just not been the same since his injury.
The Bucs played against him this year. Oh yeah, we did play him, huh? You're right.
We won that game, yeah.
We did, yeah. But I was thinking he was still injured, but you're right. He was back because I remember a friend of mine who was at the game said that the crowd was chanting for McCoy to come into that game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was like, I forgot he played.
What I'm really excited about, I know I talked with you earlier today before this show, and you had watched the Rose Bowl a couple of times, and I'd really love to get your perspective on what you saw from both quarterbacks. Do you think it was a fair assessment to judge these quarterbacks based on that game, or do you look at all the film, put all the film together, and then assess talent, or what do you see?
Honestly, I've watched the game 3 times. The third time I didn't actually watch the entire game, but I've skimmed through a lot of it. But I don't think this was a very good game for either quarterback. I think I've seen Jameis Winston play a lot better. I'm here in Albuquerque, and we get a lot of Florida State games locally just because that was the hot team this year. And to be completely honest, I haven't seen very many of Oregon's games just for timing, or they don't show them as often as the Florida State games. So I was really looking forward to watching the Rose Bowl to get a better feel of what Mariota was all about. And from the film that I saw with Mariota, I did not see very many passes completed with accuracy over like 10, 15 yards. There's a lot of screen passes, bubble screens to open receivers, and a lot of his passing yards come after the catch because of the way their offense runs, Right. So that was just something I noticed. That there was a couple deep balls that he did throw that were overthrown. So I'm not sure the accuracy is there. I did pull up a highlight reel that had a really good deep ball thrown by Mariota. I think it was like a 35-yard pass or something. I can't remember. But that's a highlight reel, And I was going to debate this with you a second ago when you say the tape don't lie. Sometimes it does, because when you watch a highlight reel, that's exactly what it is. It's a highlight reel. And so, the disclaimer of this wasn't his best game, and I don't know for sure. I haven't watched many of his games. But the fact that he's throwing bubble screens every other play I just don't know if you can play that in the NFL unless you're under Chip Kelly, that kind of offense, Right. And when you look back at Oregon quarterbacks that have come out of the draft, there's not very many successful Oregon-style quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm thinking, wasn't Joey Harrington? Joey Harrington was the last big-timer that came out of Oregon, right?
I honestly don't even know for sure. I couldn't say
Okay.
for sure. But
Yeah, I have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure that I think Joey Harrington was the last big timer that came out of Oregon that had all the hype behind him.
yeah, and that's the thing is like you don't see a lot of Oregon quarterbacks. And then the other flip side to that is come into the NFL, and Chip Kelly's done a really good job in Philadelphia. But I think that these spread offenses like Oregon and what Chip Kelly runs is very quarterback friendly. I mean, he's turned Mark Sanchez into a decent quarterback again.
Yeah,
It's just because they're very quarterback friendly. It's your first read is usually going to be open because it's a bubble screen.
right.
So, and I'm not saying this is 100% of the time, but it's just a very quarterback friendly league. And when you come to the NFL and you run a pro style offense where you have multiple reads and check downs, I just don't know if he can do it. That's
Yeah.
just my personal opinion. Maybe he can. It would be awesome. He has great athleticism.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's athletic, and when he is on the run and can dump off the ball while he's running, he does a good job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
The one game that the other game that I did see besides the Rose Bowl was the game against Arizona. And the one thing that I will say is that he makes plays with his legs, but he's not going to get himself injured. And he's real
right,
smart about getting down and sliding. That's the one thing that I did notice about him. And he didn't hold the ball long. Quick release, and that's one thing that
it's
I think
because
is
it's
important.
usually his first read, though.
Right, right. Oh,
So
absolutely. I'm not discrediting that. I'm just saying that he just doesn't, he doesn't hold on to the ball long. Now, I'm
right.
wondering, I mean, in your thinking, do you think it's possible that a coach that's coachable, that's something that he can get out of and possibly get under center, snap the ball, and then look up and go through his progressions with the speed of the defense in the NFL? Do you think that, I mean, with his
Well, I mean, I can't
athleticism,
count the dude out. He's an athlete. He's,
right,
and he's been playing football his entire life. The
right.
problem is with the offense that he's been running for the last couple of years is, I mean, how do you forget that? And how do you all of a sudden go from taking 80% of your snaps under center? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
Yeah,
not saying it's impossible, but
yeah,
what's the likelihood that you're going to walk into that and just be awesome at it? I don't
right.
know. I
Yeah.
think it's definitely going to have to be something where the offense, in a sense, caters to his strengths.
Oh, most
But if
definitely.
you get it, but if, like I said, if he was to go to Philadelphia, he'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, because that pace that
Yeah.
they have in Philadelphia is catered to that type of offense, most definitely. So, we're talking about Mariota. So, as you're now GM Princess Nikki here, a royalty and a general manager. So, what would you do? You have the number one pick.
Well,
Uh,
let's get back into Winston because we didn't really touch on Winston.
okay.
Um, what I saw from Jameis Winston, and like I said, I've watched more Jameis Winston games than I have Marcus Mariota. Throughout the season, and I'm kind of an FSU hater because I'm a little salty Auburn fan from last year, but, I tried to watch it, objectively as best as I could. And it happened a little more throughout the season. But what I did like about him is there was a lot of games where I'd see pressure coming in his face. It's coming at him. Like, it's right there. And he stood there, delivered the ball accurately, and took the hit. And I liked that. The poise that he had, and he throws a lot of interceptions, and I haven't watched enough of his film, like, meticulously to figure out why he's throwing them, or if, I don't know. I honestly don't know why. But I like his ability to shake off those interceptions and move on from his mistakes and just, keep going in the game and doesn't get, all tied up on those things. Because a lot of times these quarterbacks get that in their head and they're stuck with it.
Right.
And they can't shake it off. I think we had that with Josh McCown a lot this season where
Mhm.
he'd throw an interception early in the game and next thing you know, it's just a snowball effect into
Yeah,
something worse.
absolutely.
So those were the
Yeah.
things that I liked throughout the season. Now, what I didn't like, and this happened in the Florida State game, I would say that the Gators were probably one of the best top two defenses he faced this season, and they were bringing some hardcore pressure towards him, and he was flustered. Then in that game, I think he threw 3 interceptions in that game. I could be wrong. But he seemed flustered, and it didn't seem like he could shake off his mistakes in that game. So that's what scared me. Arguably one of the best defenses you face in college football, because, I mean, you can't help your schedule, but it wasn't, they came from behind where they should be dominating. And that team wasn't as good as the year before.
Right.
But if you're getting flustered by a Florida defense, what are you going to face in the NFL every single Sunday? It's going to be twice what Florida is, and that scared me.
Right.
So that was something I didn't like. Going into the Rose Bowl, I saw some really tight windows that he threw the ball into, and they were pretty accurate. He's very elusive at avoiding the pressure and giving himself time when, his O-line does collapse, and if you're coming behind this Buccaneers offensive line, you're going to need to do that. So I think Jameis Winston it depends on the offensive coordinator and what kind of style offense we run, but I think that Jameis is more pro-ready, and I hate to say that because that term just gets, thrown around. I don't know if he's a franchise.
But it makes a lot of sense because you have to consider, if you're under center, you have to be paying attention to the ball. And once you have the ball, then you have to be able to look up and look over the defense to see who you're throwing to or who's open at that time, and you have to read through your progressions. The one thing that I did like, just like you mentioned about Jameis Winston, is the ability to feel pressure, step up into the pocket to extend the play, and get the ball down the field. And the guy has a cannon for an arm, and I was really impressed with that. So I mean, for me, I saw the same things you did. And that's really cool that we're seeing watch the same game, we see the same thing. So I was really impressed with his poise as well. And everybody's trying to put this on Jameis, but he wasn't the defense that gave up all those points to Oregon. He did as much as he could do, and with what he had to work with. I'm not making excuses, but it is pretty much what it is.
Well, I didn't watch the game as to who won or who lost. In that sense.
It was more of a talent evaluation for you.
Exactly. For me, I don't care who won that game. So the winner of that game has no merit in the fact of how to evaluate the quarterbacks. And I'm not no quarterback guru. I'm just telling you what I see.
So with Oregon advancing, do you think that Ohio State is a better test with the faster defense that they have compared to what you saw at Florida State?
I don't know how I feel about Ohio State, to be honest.
I'm
still surprised that they got in. I mean, they sure played a good game versus Alabama. Sure.
Absolutely, and that's what I was kind of going towards. Is Alabama is a good team. They're a very good team from the defense to the offense. They're not as good as in past years, but they are a really good team.
Right.
And the way that Ohio State handled them was, it was a close game. It was two great teams.
I think Saban just got out coached, though. I think that game came down to Urban Meyer's just was more prepared. I think that Alabama, in a sense, laid down a little bit and slept on Ohio State, and Ohio State did their homework, and they came out, and Urban Meyer outcoached him. I think that's more of a coaching issue, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how Marcus Mariota handles this Ohio State defense. I completely agree. I just don't know. I don't have any predictions on it to be
and that's the game I'm really interested in seeing because I think you're going to see a faster defense than what you saw with Florida State. And that's what I'm kind of curious to see how Mariota reacts to a well-coached football team that has players that are not just freshmen, seniors. You have a more experienced defense out there. And, I think that Ohio State is a better team than what people give them credit for because of the sanctions that were against them. They weren't able to play in bowl games in a few years back, and just being able to come back and do what they're doing now, they've been winning for a long time.
Oh, yeah, and not only that, it's, they come in, what's his name, Braxton Miller was out before the season even started. Their
Right.
starting quarterback is just out, and they came back and battled through adversity, and they're at the top right now, and well deserved, well
Absolutely,
coached
and they're
football
playing with
team.
a third-string quarterback, to be honest.
Exactly. Yep.
So, well, we'll see. All right. So, we talked about both of the players. So, I really, I kind of hear where you're leaning, but I kind of want to hear it from you. Who do you think who would be your quarterback if you're talking about bringing somebody into the NFL,
My biggest
a
problem
team that's a two-win team, and a team that's kind of rebuilding? Who is your quarterback?
My biggest problem with deciding this right now is that we don't even have an offensive coordinator. And I would hate to say I want Marcus Mariota, but we run, an offense that he's never ran before, and then we put him in there and just fail, and we're back in the same place next year. Or vice versa, if we get an offensive coordinator I'm not saying Chip Kelly, but like a Chip Kelly who's very, fast spread offense, that kind of stuff, and we get Jameis Winston in there, and that's just not his style. So that's my hardest thing is I want to see who we have as an offensive coordinator before to see what direction we're going in. Honestly, I'm afraid of a lot of things when it comes to Jameis Winston, but if you're going to talk about quarterback on the field, I would personally pick Jameis Winston over Marcus Mariota. I think in the right system, and he seems like a smart kid. You could probably coach him up, but I like to just put him in, plug and play. I would say Jameis Winston would probably be better.
Right. Now, when we're talking about offensive coordinators, I know the Bucs have been real busy trying to speak to different offensive coordinators. Is there anybody that you can think of, in the NFL or in the college ranks that you would like to see the Bucs possibly look at as an offensive coordinator?
I don't know, to be honest.
I personally, and me personally, I was always hoping that Dirk Carter would be the guy, and a lot of people have said no, he's stubborn, or he has his own way of doing things. He only wants to do it his way. I've heard that from a couple of Falcons fans, but I don't, in that aspect, I really don't know. But he seems like somebody that I would want to coach up a quarterback. For instance, based on what he's done with Matt Ryan, I think that it would be potential. He would be a good fit here in Tampa, personally.
I could see that. I honestly don't know how I feel about him because if you think about it, Atlanta had all the right people to run the schemes that they ran. They had the Michael Turner at the time and Matt Ryan who can throw a deep ball pretty nicely and can stand in the pocket. So if you want something like that, then you definitely need somebody like Jameis Winston, who is more of a pocket quarterback with a cannon for an arm. That's what Matt Ryan is with a little bit more athleticism.
Right.
So, I could see that working, but another thing that you said about him doing it his way kind of thing, maybe we need that because we can't have Lovey sticking his nose in the offense.
Yeah, we saw that. We saw that a little bit with Tony Dungy and how he was involved with the offense, and he really should have just had an offensive coordinator and let them handle it, kind of how he did in Indianapolis.
Right.
In Dirk Carter's defense, you look at the running game. They haven't had a good running game since Michael Turner.
Since Turner, right?
Yeah, and when Tony Gonzalez retired, they never got that high quality tight end as well.
But the thing about Gonzalez and Turner, those are pretty decent Hall of Fame type players. If they don't make it, they're pretty damn close to it.
Right.
So those are just kind of not one in a million, but those are hard to come by. So it's not like they can just replace them.
Right.
And are you saying from a coaching aspect?
Yeah, I'm just saying. Well, with the general manager, they bring in the personnel, and you have the coaches. They coach the players that the general manager brings in, and just looking at the quality of players that Atlanta has brought in, they really haven't brought in any replacements to speak of. That have made an impact. They brought in Jackson. Steven Jackson, but he was towards the end of his career, and he's so injury prone. It's just hard to get the best out of him. I just don't think that it's fair to the offensive coordinator. I know you have to be creative and next man up and all that stuff, but it is what it is. I look at, they have Julio Jones, but over the past couple of years, you look at on the other end of the ball, Roddy White has been in and out of the games with injuries. So they haven't had the full complement of players that they should have. But when Cotter came in 2012, I mean they were dynamite, to be honest, with his play calling.
Well, like I said, I honestly don't know too much about the different candidates, so I honestly can't say, but I'm just interested to see what direction they want to go. We definitely, there's no way in hell. That's a good question. How come nobody has been fired from our staff? We're not going into next season with Marcus Arroyo. Why is he still there?
I think he was brought in because of
Tedford.
They had no offensive coordinator. He's kind of that guy.
He's a big Tedford guy, though. That's all he was. And without Tedford, he's not going to stick around. I don't even think he'll stay there as the quarterback's coach.
Yeah. So you see, and there's a lot of things that are going on, and you kind of have to wait and see how everything plays out. I'd even heard about Trestman possibly being a quarterback's coach.
I thought that was interesting. Let's hire the guy who now had Lovey's job.
Right, and that's not even in a capacity as an offensive coordinator. We're talking about just in the capacity as a quarterback's coach. So, I mean, do you think if you're a head coach, do you think you turn around and come back to a team as a quarterback's coach? Would you is that set a precedence, or do you think that's possible?
I mean, it is if you're not getting any other offers.
Yeah.
And the other thing that scares me is if Trestman comes on, that I kind of feel like maybe that could foreshadow the fact that we might have to have Josh McCown be our starter again next year.
I don't know if my liver could handle another year of him. I'm sorry. That guy is abysmal.
But, okay, I had an interesting thought about this. Do you think, and I'm not saying that Josh McCown is a really good quarterback. What I'm saying is, I wonder if we had the offensive line that we had last year, do you think that McCown would have been as bad as he was this year behind that line? Because I don't think so. I think a lot of his boneheaded mistakes had to do that he didn't trust the line. And I'm not going to say that a better line would have made him this great quarterback. I don't believe that. But I just don't feel like he would be as bad as he was if he trusted the line.
Yeah, now you do make a valid point. And just looking at some of the sacks that when you get sacked multiple times in a game, I mean, it makes you shell-shot, and you don't know.
Kudos to Josh McCown for getting up after every single one of those hits he took this year. I think I saw something that Mike Glennon and Josh McCown got sacked a combined 52 times this year. That's ridiculous.
That reminds me of Chris Sims back when Chris Sims was playing, and how our offensive line was not that good then, and he almost died on the field. I mean, where he was getting hit so much.
That's my point. I don't know. I'm just saying that's why maybe I'm a little bit more into the camp of trading the pick away. And I know everyone's going to jump on me. I want a quarterback just as bad as the next Buccaneers fan. We've never had one. I understand that. We have to take a chance on one of them. I completely agree. But if the price tag was right, if we could get some sort of RG3 type value out of this pick, or better, because that's the standard for a number one pick at this point. It's going to have to be a couple, if not two number ones and something else. It's going to be a big price tag to trade out of that spot. If there's a buyer, I would probably sell, because there are so many things wrong with this team besides quarterback. And throwing Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota behind this line is going to shatter them, just like RG3. RG3 got murdered his first season. And look, he can't come back from it. And
Right.
I would hate to waste. Say, Jameis Winston is the quarterback we want, we hope and dream for. Marcus Mariota is that guy, and we put them behind a line, and they just get murdered every Sunday. It's gonna wear on them mentally and physically, and then we might be in the same position again.
Yeah. And we looked at this prior to the show. We currently have nine draft picks right now
I
as it
think it was
stands.
eight.
Huh?
Eight.
Oh, okay,
It
eight.
was eight.
Okay, so we
Yeah, we
do
have
have
eight
eight
picks.
eight draft picks as it stands right now. So
If we could get a first this year and maybe what, like a third? Okay, say we got this year's first, next year's second, and this year's third, or even this year's second and next year's third. That's four picks on top of it, and I'm sure we could even squeeze more out of it if somebody was sold on it.
yeah.
It's gonna
Now,
have
are
to be
there
no
any
less than
teams
two
out
number
there?
ones.
Are there any teams out there that we would consider as trading partners other than the Eagles?
The Jets. I'd have to look into how many picks they have, but the Jets would be a good one. They're bringing in a whole new staff. They're
Right.
not going to roll with Geno Smith. The Jets need a quarterback. The Eagles could potentially go if they wanted Mariota that bad. They could take him.
Yeah. Currently, the Jets are looking at the number 6 pick.
See, and we wouldn't even be trading that far back, and we got Mike Evans at pick 7.
Pick 7, exactly.
I haven't looked into all the mock drafts, and I'm
So
not that
currently,
college football savvy, but Amari Cooper.
so as it stands right now, you have the Buccaneers with the first pick, the Tennessee Titans with the second pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars with the third pick, the Raiders with the fourth pick, Redskins are fifth, the Jets are sixth, the Bears 7, Falcons 8, Giants 9, and the Rams are 10. Which is
Check
hard to
this
believe
out.
that the Rams, and I think the Rams might even be in the market for a quarterback with the issues that they've had with their quarterback and injuries over the past few years.
Exactly. Everybody's talking about all the stuff that Washington gave up to get RG3, but nobody's giving any credit to what the Rams got back into in that trade, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The Rams are probably a quarterback and a wide receiver away from a playoff spot.
Well, I want to hear,
And
I know
wouldn't in
we
2 years though, wouldn't you want the Bucs to be in that same position? Yeah, maybe we don't have a quarterback for 2 years, but in 2 years we're only 2 positions away from being a legitimate contender.
Oh, absolutely. And I do want to hear you had the troll of the year, which was I think is kind of appropriate for right now and who we're talking about. So you want to share that, as I thought that was really interesting.
Oh yeah, troll of the year goes to Jeff Fisher for sure for sending out all 6 players they got in the RG3 trade for the coin toss against the Redskins. The funny thing is that RG3 got benched that week. Oh yeah,
to me that is what is so cool about that is that all 6 of those draft picks are still with that team. And, they were all able to come out onto the field,
I know, even the probably bench players. I don't even know who they all are, but he sent them out there as captains. I think it's hilarious. Troll of the year. Yeah, and the funny thing is he didn't say anything about it. He just did it to be like, only smart people will get this. And I saw that, and I just died. I think it's hilarious. I loved it. But, yeah, definitely. But that's the thing is, like, I'm not 100% sold on either quarterback. I see good things in both of them. But if I can trade it and get 6 picks out of this and in 2 more years be a quarterback and I don't know, maybe a defensive end away from being a contender.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The one thing that really gives me hope too is throughout this year, other than the few blowouts, let's see, there was the Ravens blowout, the Falcons blowout, and there was one more, I think. I can't remember who the other blowout. But anyway, the Bucs have always been in these games. And with the level of talent that we have, and with people learning the new defense and not having an offensive coordinator, just losing by 6 or less points, or 7 or 8 or less points on a number of games that we could have possibly won. It really gives me hope for the future, to be very honest.
Well, and that goes back to my point about the offensive line with Josh McCown. I just don't believe that if we had a better offensive line that Josh McCown would have played as poorly as he did this year. Even Mike Glennon, for that matter. They were running for their lives because they didn't
Right.
trust the line, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to stand behind that line either. But
Yeah,
that's
the Detroit Lions game was probably the hardest game for me to watch as far as our quarterbacks go.
oh yeah, that was awful.
Because they were
The whole
getting lit, they
season
were
was
getting lit up
awful.
left and right.
That offensive line. I mean, we don't need to beat a dead horse, but that offensive line was horrendous. It was
Yeah.
absolutely horrendous. And that's what I'm saying. Your point about us being in these games, I just feel like if our line was better, we might have gotten better play out of Josh McCown.
Yeah,
And we wouldn't be looking at him like the worst thing since, I don't know, battery acid in your face. I don't know.
But the one thing that I will say, and I mentioned this before, I think that, there are some holes that did get filled. We look at like a Mark Barron, how once we traded Mark Barron and we got other players in there that were better in coverage, that it definitely helped our team, and we weren't giving up the big play like we had before as much.
Right. I mean, we can get into, that kind of stuff later in the off season, because once people start getting cut or released or whatever, that'll be interesting. But that for every free agent bust that we had this year, there's your and I know Danny Lantana was here before this regime, but there's your Danny Lantanas that got coached up really well.
Yes.
Was that Hardy Nickerson coaching them up? Like,
Yeah.
good old Hardy. You got your Danny Lantanas. You have Ori Lemon, who played really well at the end of the season. Jonathan Banks, stepped up this year. I thought the step up was going to be from Mason Foster, and Jonathan Banks pleasantly surprised me. So,
Well, and to be very honest, in his defense, Mason Foster was in and out with injuries, and me personally, I don't see him coming back to the Bucs. They may re-sign him. I don't know.
I think he knows he's gone from the tweets and everything. I think he knows he's done, which makes me sad. I really like Mason Foster, but.
And and there are a lot of players in the, there's a lot of fans in the NFC South alone. We've both been on the show Southbound and Down. Just talking to those guys, they really had a lot of respect for Mason Foster as a player. So, I mean, that speaks volumes when rival fans are, speaking well of a player.
God, it's going to be awful when he goes to Carolina next year, huh?
Yeah, and I can foresee something like that happening. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit, and I know we only had 2 wins this year, but I'd like to kind of talk a little bit about the year that was. I know we kind of touched on the offensive line a little bit, and I just kind of want to get your perspective, because I know you've been painfully watching all these games throughout the year, and I just kind of want to get your
I'm a
your
glutton
perspective
for
on things.
punishment, apparently.
I think we all are. And the one thing, and this disclaimer for any Bucs fans that are listening, if you've been with us from Raheem Morris on to now, you are a diehard fan, and you deserve to feel the way you do. So, we're still here, we're still Bucs fans, we're still repping the team.
I just got a new Bucs tattoo.
Yes. And I'm working on getting a design for a Bucs tattoo as well. So I'm right there with you.
We're still here. I remember laying there getting this tattoo, and I have to get it finished. But I'm like, I don't know what's more painful, this tattoo or the season I just sat through.
Yeah. So I do want to know, what are some good things and besides the offensive line that you and bad things that you saw with the team that you look forward to either changing or improving in the future?
That I look forward to changing or improving?
Yeah.
Well, goes without saying, definitely the offensive line. I think the entire thing needs to be revamped. DeMar Dotson, for being our best offensive line player last year, I think he's like 6th or 7th overall in the entire league for most penalties. Like, we can't have that from DeMar Dotson.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and gosh, can you name another player on our line that played very well? Like,
Uh,
not
I,
really.
not really. No, not really
Not
at all.
really. Not really. Maybe Mankins can. I don't know. Maybe.
You know,
I,
and it's interesting that you bring up Mankins. I've heard, I've read a lot of things like on social media, Bleacher Reports, where a lot of players on the offensive line look to him because of his experience with the New England Patriots, and I really that's one of those places where I hope that he will make an impact next year, and he will, whoever we bring in or whoever we draft, he will make them better and help us to really gel that line. And I
right.
think that's going to be a focal point for Lovie Smith is to get that line shored up so that whoever we have under center does not get destroyed like they did this year.
I just need Mankins to put his head in the game too, though.
Yeah.
I think there was a few times where I think he was. I mean, you go from protecting Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's more than likely heading to the AFC Championship game this year, to
Mhm.
playing for a 2-14 Buccaneers team. If I was him, I would be pretty mentally
Yeah.
defeated after that. And so I need him to get his head in the game and see that he can seriously make a difference on this offensive line and improve us to a better team next year.
Most definitely. That is something that I'm looking forward to as well. Is his veteran presence and helping the players around him to get better. There are some players that just won't get better. For instance, O'Neal Cousins. That was somebody that I saw play after
I'd rather
play.
have O'Neal Cousins than Garrett Gilkey.
Yeah, well, that goes
I'll
without
take
saying.
O'Neal Cousins all day over Garrett Gilkey.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. But
God, if the first game that Garrett Gilkey came in, he came in for 4 possessions and got 2 penalties. If that doesn't tell you right there.
talk about being born under a bad sign, yeah.
Man, seriously.
So, and the offensive line is the key to so many different things because I do believe that what you saw with Doug Martin in the Saints game, where holes were being opened up and he could actually run, Sims getting holes that were open up for him in that last Saints game as well. That's what I'm looking forward to seeing, and
I'm
that's
looking
the
forward to the defense. This defense got progressively better throughout the year, and the players that stepped up,
absolutely.
the players that you didn't think, the Lansanas, the Ori Lemon, Keith Tandy even played not so
Oh
terrible.
yeah, most
It's Keith
definitely.
Tandy, you know,
And
I,
while we're talking about the defense, I've got something really interesting. I was on the Buccaneers website, and they're talking about the the top five tacklers for the Bucs, and it's really interesting because like at number 5, they've got Mason Foster with 62 tackles, and then at number 4, you've got Altron Werner with 76 tackles, and then Danny Lansana with 81 tackles.
and Danny
And
Lantana, I think, had 2 pick sixes.
yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. So they were balling. And Deshaun Golston, 81 tackles. And of course, the tackling machine, Levante David, is number 1 with 146 tackles.
As he deserves it.
And
Levante
you know what?
David
What's
is
horrible
like,
is he's not a Pro Bowler, which he should be. He should be at the Pro Bowl, not as
he's
an
an
alternate,
alternate.
and it's something that just it irks me. It's the
You
second
know,
year in a row.
I agree, but the reason he doesn't get the respect is because of the jersey he wears, and I'm sad to say it, but it's true. It's a popularity contest, and the more we start winning, the more he'll get respect, and it sucks that it has to be that way, but, when the All-Pro rankings come out, he was an honorable mention for second team, right? He didn't make second team, because Gerald McCoy made second team this year.
Right.
But, Levante David only got 2 votes, I think, for All-Pro, and that was just I don't get it. But he didn't have the interceptions and the sacks that he had last year. This year,
Right. And I think,
so
and one thing that I'm really happy with is how he's settled into this new defense, and he's playing.
he's a natural player though. Like he's
Yeah.
just natural. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's like Jesus and a will linebacker. It's amazing.
All right. So, and we're talking about improvements or what you saw during the season. What were some things? Who are some players that you saw that you really, really liked? I mean, let me get your top three.
I love what I saw out of Mike Evans this year. He was the spark in the team the entire season. Mike Evans is my overall offensive MVP for this team because he even added, everybody wants that dog on the field, and he kind of was. He kind of would get in people's face, and, maybe I don't really want him arguing with the refs, but he kind of did that too, he didn't want to give up.
Right.
Mike Evans, definitely. Gerald McCoy went out there and played with a freaking cast on his hand and batted a ball down with that casted hand. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
There for a second in the last game that he got hurt, I can't even remember what game it was, but he wanted to come back out there.
Was that the Detroit game, or did he get hurt? Because I know he got hurt in the Detroit game. Was it the next game?
I think it might have been the next game because I think he came back and then he got hurt again, didn't he?
Right.
And then he was out. He was done. But
yeah, because I was griping because they brought him back in instead of shutting him down. Because I think
I would have shut him down too. But Gerald McCoy just has that will and that fire that he doesn't want to sit out and gosh, I wish we had I wish Michael Johnson could have done something next to him because if Johnson could have taken off some of that pressure from McCoy would have even been better than he was this year.
Yeah.
But McCoy and obviously number 3 is Levante David, definitely.
Okay.
Those are my 3 players, the top 3 on this team.
Okay, and is there anybody out there that surprised you that you just weren't expecting?
Danny Lanzana. If not Danny Lanzana, Jonathan Banks. Because I remember it was me and Fish from the Bucs Brave. We're talking in preseason. Right. And both of us, I think we were tweeting during a preseason game. I'm like, both of us kept saying, I like this Lanzana kid. I like him. And then I think they signed him, and then they demoted him to the practice squad. And I was sad for him because I really thought I liked what I saw from him since preseason. Then Mason got hurt. They bumped him up, and he got his playing time, and he was awesome. Danny Lanzana, I was so happy when they finally gave him his minutes. So that would be my person of surprise, and I'm very happy to see I'm excited to go into next season with Lanzana.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm right there with you. Mike Evans was everything I thought he would be. If we go back to the draft from last year, I personally wanted Teddy Bridgewater. That was the guy I wanted. I know that he had a bad pro day. I've pretty much decided that I'm not even going to watch the combines. I'm not going to watch the combines because to me it's all commercial now. It really doesn't mean anything to me like it did. And for me, Mike Evans played lights out. He is an amazing guy. I watched what he did to Terrence Newman when he just put that guy on the ground. He's not just a wide receiver. He's an actual football player where he's going downfield and he's laying blocks on people. And for me, that guy, he deserves so much more credit because of the offensive line once again, and not having an offensive coordinator and having 2 different quarterbacks coming in throughout the season, and he still got over 1,000 yards receiving.
So Vincent Jackson.
Exactly, and you know what? I can't forget about Vincent Jackson because it's another person who's been very positive throughout the whole
I feel really bad for Vincent Jackson, to be honest.
Yeah, he's the forgotten guy.
Well, not even just that. We've wasted Vincent Jackson, in his prime. He came out of San Diego, and he was great in San Diego, but he was not on the decline when we got him.
No.
And, whether it was bad quarterback play or this year, there was games that we didn't even target him till the end of the 3rd quarter. And this is Vincent Jackson we're talking about. Honestly, I don't know if I hope he's on the team next year. I know he's expensive, but he's worth the money. But you've got to use him. None of this, people that argue with me saying that he's not worth what we pay him, well, we're not even using him. We're not targeting him. And
we have to look also at the intangibles as well. What he does in the locker room, what he does in the community, and how he represents the Buccaneers organization. Your football players, for an owner, they're investments. And to me, I know, I'm with you. I know I've heard a lot of people on social media saying, he's not worth the money, or wow, that's a lot of money to spend on somebody who's on the decline. But I personally think he's worth the money as well.
I do.
I would be so happy to see him come back as a Buccaneer another season. Uh, he's done wonders with Mike Evans to really groom him and kind of help him along as well. Safarian Jenkins is another guy that he's kind of working with, and I hope to see big things from Safarian Jenkins and our tight ends. Hopefully they'll all be healthy and they can contribute as well.
Right.
But kind of going back to my list, Gerald McCoy is definitely on my list. Playing hurt as much as he played hurt, and all the injuries that he suffered throughout his career, and he still comes back and he dominates. And I like how McDonald kind of came on towards the end of the season and played well. And I would love to see us get some really good defensive ends to complete that whole line. Losing Claiborne in the beginning of the season with an injury really hurt our defense as well. I know he hasn't played up to his potential with the injuries that he's had, but I hope that next season that, if he's still here, that he is able to contribute as well. But definitely,
I don't think we need him. We have Jacquez Smith. Jacquez Smith played awesome.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
That's another one that we can credit with this regime and their talent evaluations, because they picked him up off the street.
Yeah.
So, as much as I like Adrian Claiborne, we have Jacquez Smith.
And I'm
not really worried about it.
Yeah, and being deep, I think, I forgot who I was speaking with, but I was talking with somebody who pointed out that the Bucs aren't really deep at any other positions with the exception of running back. Where would you say that we're deep in any other position besides?
Oh no, not at all. But I not at all. I've been saying that all year. But the nice thing is that not having the depth is where we found these players.
Right, absolutely.
So,
but building towards the future, having that depth is really nice. Being able to rotate these players in and keep them fresh.
Well, but see, this was a contract year for Adrian, and if we were to keep him, I don't see us paying him any big money. How can you?
But you could have a contract filled with incentives. Like
a veteran minimum kind of deal?
Yeah, you could have a contract filled with incentives, and you have to play good or you're gone. That kind of thing.
Right.
So I could see Jason Light. He's proven to be a very good general manager so far. From what I'm seeing, I really do think that as we move forward, we'll see a lot more of these type of moves from him. But I think that it would be nice if we could re-sign Claiborne. It would be good to have him, in the rotation. But
I'm not against it. Definitely.
Not at an expense, not being really expensive or anything.
Right. Right. Definitely. I'm 100% with you. And who's your third player on your list?
The third player, it was really hard for me, but I still kind of go back and forth. I'm going to say Altron Werner. And I know you probably think I'm crazy with this, but Altron Werner quietly had a good season when he was healthy. I know that Jonathan Banks was on the other side, I get what you're saying, but just from what I saw from Altron Werner, he didn't get burned a lot. Not in the grand scheme of things, but I thought that he played really well, and I thought that was a good pickup, and I expect to see more out of him, coming with the season coming up.
I definitely think he needs to work on his hands because he had a couple interceptions just dropped this year, and I'd like to see him catch those kind of balls more often.
Yeah, and I think that's something that once again, it's a new defense for everybody, and I think that with a year of experience under their belt, I think you're going to see a lot of improvement with the season coming up. That's as football players, you're competitive, and you definitely want to get the most out of your players, and players want to get the most out of the team. So I really do expect to see improvement. Now we talked about the positive. Let's talk about what you saw that you didn't like, or players that kind of disappointed you.
Disappointing. Michael Johnson, supposed to be, Joe McCoy's number 2 guy, non-existent. Absolutely terrible. You know, I don't know if, he had that ankle injury. I don't know if that hindered him the whole season and he just didn't do anything. Hopefully next year, because I don't think we can cut him. I mean, I would be okay with it and eat the money, but maybe next year, and another year away from that ankle injury, he'd be better. So Michael Johnson was definitely a big disappointment for me. Another disappointment, gosh, that whole line is just awful. But I was a little disappointed with Werner just because I thought he was going to produce more than he did. I'm not saying he played really bad, but I just maybe I overhyped him in my head. So I was a little disappointed by Alteron Werner. I don't know. I really liked how Louis Murphy stepped up, so that was good.
And we re-signed him.
Yeah. Did you see the contract numbers for him?
Yes.
There's only like $800,000 guaranteed, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It was a $4.6 million contract for 3 years, so that's a great contract for him.
Yeah, and Louis Murphy did come in the clutch. He made some really good plays, and I was happy with his play as well. Yeah,
definitely. But anybody else that was disappointing? Garrett Gilkey? Jesus. Why is he still here? I don't know. Michael Kanan was a huge disappointment. Michael Kanan was money last year. He could pin that ball within the 10, and this year it just, I don't know. There was that big old debate whether he was being coached to do it that way or not, but 23-yard punts is ridiculous. I can punt 23 yards.
Yeah, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, and for the amount of money, I really liked him. I really liked Kanan going into this year. I was happy that we still had him, and then he just was a huge disappointment.
Yeah. All right. Well, I know for me, number one is Mankins. I expected more out of Mankins this year. Based on what he did, and I think a lot of it for me was the reaction that Tom Brady had when he found out that they had traded his guy, which Mankins was his guy. And I was expecting him to come in and at least be able to do a lot more than what he did, and it just seemed to me at times that his head wasn't in the game. So Mankins was a big one for me. I think, too, and I know he may have been injured, but Austin Seferian-Jenkins, you see potential in this guy, and he was injured, and he just didn't. I don't think we got the most out of him, and I don't know if I'm wrong for being disappointed in him. But when we drafted him, you see his size and his hands, and you think that this guy is going to make a difference, especially with the tight end position, where we've been kind of thin with a good tight end for some time.
Right. What about Evan Dietrich Smith?
Yes, that's my third one right there. Dietrich Smith really let me down. I expected so much out of this guy coming in.
You can't even snap the ball. You're a center that can't snap the ball. That's like job description number 1.
Yeah, so those are my 3. And I'm sad the season's over because I love football so much, and I'm already looking forward to the draft, and looking forward to what the Bucs are going to do in free agency. Which I'm looking right now. We talked a whole hour about this. We haven't even gotten a chance to touch on free agency or who could potentially be coming here. And I'm thinking that on our next show, that might be something that we look at as a little bit more into the draft and potential players that could end up here in Tampa, and possibly who we could get in free agency as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't want to pat myself on the back because this is kind of unrelated, but minus the coaches, because I kind of wanted Ken Wisenhunt to come in. I thought we needed an offensive guy, and I really liked what he did in San Diego, and that was a disaster in Tennessee. But everybody that I wanted to be drafted, like to be a Buck in the draft, turned out pretty damn good. I wanted Aaron Donald, who was awesome in St. Louis. I wanted Trey Mason, who was awesome. I was so jealous of St. Louis's entire draft, by the way. But I think I did pretty good evaluations because if we didn't take Mike Evans, I wanted Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you.
And so I think I did pretty good in hindsight wanting certain players because the ones I wanted turned out really well, except for Ken Wisenhunt because I really wanted him to be our coach.
Well, that's what we're going to we have to do that before the draft. We have to kind of get together and figure out who would you pick? And if you're doing the draft, who would you like to see? And
the other thing is I liked Bortles better than some of the other quarterbacks in the draft, and it was interesting to me that he was the first quarterback taken. I don't know. I didn't watch him meticulously, so I don't know. I've heard he had a decent year. I've heard he had a terrible year. I don't really know. Yeah. But Blake Bortles I liked him in the combine. That was just like something about him. I just watched him play in the throw the ball and the way he did the drills, and I was like, I really like this kid. Turns out he's the first quarterback taken. And I didn't want Johnny Manziel.
I saw him a few times on ESPN, and I was really impressed with him. Johnny Manziel, I was against anybody taking him. And let's put this in perspective. The Cleveland Browns could have gotten Odell Beckham Jr. instead of ending up with Johnny Manziel. So, I mean, I don't know. That kind of just blows my mind.
That's why they're the Cleveland Browns. But yeah, so hopefully, if this year coming up is anything like last year, maybe we'll have some pretty decent talent evaluations between the two of us.
Oh, absolutely. I think we can put together a draft the day before or something.
That'll be interesting.
I really enjoyed our time talking here, and anything closing, anything exciting happened for you or happening? I know you just got back from Tampa. I'm so jealous.
I met Rondé Barber.
I saw that picture.
Best moment of my freaking life.
Well, I thought it would be Derek Fisher. But
it's Derek Fisher, Rondé Barber. Like it's right there. I have Rondé's jerseys framed in my room, and all I wanted for my birthday this year was an autographed Rondé Barber football, and I got it for my birthday. So I love Rondé Barber. He's been my all-time favorite Buccaneer. So, greatest moment ever was meeting Rondé Barber.
Yeah, I think for me, John Lynch is still one of my all-time favorite Bucs. Him and Derek Brooks. I've met both of them at Pepinrood Stadium when the Bucs, before John Gruden, and when the Bucs used to practice over there. And really, really nice guys, and I've always liked them. But yeah, Rondé Barber, I hope that he makes it into the Hall of Fame. He deserves it.
I think
his stats are off the charts.
I think he will, and he pretty much defined what a nickel corner is. Like, he innovated that position. So yes, definitely that was the exciting thing. Other than that, I don't have anything exciting going on. I start school on Monday. Yay.
Yeah.
But other than that, no.
All right. Well, everybody, I want to thank you. I do want to give a shout out to some of the people over on Facebook that I talked to, and Cats Chronicles. I appreciate you guys' support. Got a lot of support from a lot of fans in the NFC South, and I really appreciate that. Scott Karasik. Let's see, Greg, thank you so much for being on the show with me last week for such short notice. I appreciate that. I don't know. I just right now everybody's name just kind of went out of my head.
I know, definitely the guys from the Cat Chronicles. They're awesome. Yeah. Thanks for having.
Very supportive. Yeah.
Yeah, and involving me in some of their shows, that was really nice of them.
Yeah, and I thought you did an awesome job. I think you really represented Tampa, the Buccaneers organization. I thought you did an excellent job.
Thanks.
All right, so that's it for us for this week, and we'll be back. Hopefully probably not next week, probably a week after, to give you. I know you're getting ready for school and everything, so we'll get it together, and I'll send some invites out so everybody can check us out.
Yes, definitely. I'm definitely looking forward to continuing with you, Junior. Awesome.
I think we make a great team.
Maybe we agree too much.
All right. Hey, have a good night.
Yeah, you too.
All right.